Hey yo, Skullcroc here and welcome to another video. Black Ops Cold War has 4 round-based maps at the time of making this video, and people have many opinions on which ones are the best and which ones are the worst. The general consensus seems to be that Forsaken and Mauer der Toten are the better ones, and Firebase C and Die Maschine aren't quite as good. But in my opinion, Mauer der Toten is actually the worst map. Before I get into the reasons why I feel that way, I want to clarify that the problems I have with the map are not gameplay related at all. I think that the map actually plays quite well. It takes some advantage of the verticality that the rappel points offer, and turning on the power and pack-a-punch is more than just hitting a button without being overly complicated. Additionally, there are quite a few good training spots. The Easter egg is also pretty good, with a boss fight that will test your absolute limits as a zombies player. In that regard, it absolutely is one of the better maps of Black Ops Cold War. With that being said, let's get into the problems I have with this map. The problems stem from the fact that this isn't a fictional place made up by Treyarch. As far as I know, none of the other zombie maps in Cold War are based on real places. In fact, most maps in all of zombies history have taken place in fictional places. Another fan favorite zombies map that was actually based on a real location should immediately come to mind though. Mob of the Dead, taking place on Alcatraz. For this, Treyarch actually went to model the map after the real prison and island as closely as possible. That is very much missing here. As I said in my video of everything Cold War zombies did wrong, I do not expect Treyarch to actually send people to Berlin, especially with what is currently going on in the world. But the internet has come a long way and Google Maps exists, so there are some errors that are in my opinion unforgivable. The Berlin Wall is one of the more iconic and recognizable parts of the history of the Cold War. It started as a more metaphorical wall in 1961 with barbed wire, barriers and fences first, and it eventually evolved into solid concrete walls. This barrier stood for 28 years before being torn down for Germany's reunification, and in case it hasn't become apparent yet, this video will in fact contain a lot of history. But that is exactly why this map doesn't work. It doesn't understand this history that is so important. I may call it the Berlin Wall in this video because I want to focus specifically on what is in the map, but the wall divided all of the Soviet-occupied Germany from West Germany. The entire wall spanned a length of 1400 kilometers or about 870 miles. It is a significant part of Cold War history, as I've already said, and in a game literally called Cold War, some more attention should have been given here. The very first and most obvious detail that is off is the wall itself. While it wasn't the exact same everywhere, there are definitely some consistent elements. The biggest one being that the wall on the west side was taller than the one on the east side and was rounded at the top to make escape even harder. This is just not present here at all, as we can see that not only are the two walls the same height, but there is no rounded top part of the west wall. Additionally, there seem to be way too many buildings right next to the wall. Many buildings were torn down for simply being too close to the wall, fearing that they would be used for escape attempts. While I can't say for certain which buildings were torn down and which were left standing, there are way too many buildings next to the wall here. Just look at this one, it's basically touching the wall. I highly doubt that this would have been allowed. Windows were also completely sealed if they weren't facing west, so why can we see so many lights at all? The death strip is also extremely lackluster. They call it the death strip, but it's more accurate to call the inconvenience strip in this map. Instead of being an integral part of the map, it's just two small areas next to Checkpoint Charlie. And when I say small, I mean very small. I actually like the idea of the searchlights, but not only can you just run through them no problem, the gun also does a pitiful 10 damage per shot. That's not deadly, that's just mildly inconvenient. On top of that, there's literally no reason to ever go in either area except to search the piles on the ground when you first get there, and one area has an upgrade station. The towers are also traps, the first traps we've seen in Cold War, and they're alright. Checkpoint Charlie is fine, I guess, nothing exceptional, though then again it is just a checkpoint, though a very important one. What isn't fine is that it seems that nobody at Treyarch bothered to do a simple Google search. What I'm about to say is the main reason I'm even making this video in the first place. Maybe some of you know what I'm talking about, but I would guess that most of you don't. I'm talking about the train station. Yes, really. Now, why would the train station be so important? Two reasons. The first is that the train stations are another infamous part of Berlin Cold War history, being known as Geisterbahnhöfe or ghost stations. The reason for this is that East Germany blocked any entrances and exits to train stations that were connected to the West. Trains wouldn't even be allowed to stop, they would have to keep driving and the passengers would see nothing but an empty, abandoned station. This is another route some people tried to use to escape to the West, which is why the entrances were barricaded so well. How is the station being barricaded in the game? With a locked gate. Couldn't we have at least gotten a brick wall to blow up? But let's get to the second and most obvious detail, the name of the station. The station is called Weinmeisterstraße. It was a ghost station back then, and today it is used as a real station once again. However, it is not right next to the wall. In fact, it's pretty far away from the wall. Not just that, but it's not even that close to Checkpoint Charlie. You know how long it took me to find this out? 5 minutes. That's it, just 5 minutes. I didn't even do it in German at first. When I tried it in German, it took me less than a minute. This is how far apart they actually are. What was Treyarch thinking? It's not like there's no train stations closer to Checkpoint Charlie, and it's not like they don't know how to find this information. This is just such a baffling mistake that seems so small that it's not even worth mentioning. But it's exactly because of how small the mistake is that it is worth mentioning. This is information someone could have found out on their coffee break. There's also no reason as to why it had to be that station specifically. It's a decision that leaves me very confused, and I'm not quite done with the subway yet, because in another baffling decision, the train tracks are directly under the Berlin Wall. While there were actually train tracks running parallel to the wall, there were none directly under it. Aesthetically, it does look very cool, and I do like the trains that are always driving by without stopping and that they are on fire. Though I will question why nobody tries stopping them, since they would have to go to West Berlin to turn around. Is the entirety of Berlin just zombified with just this very small section remaining uncorrupted? I would also like to point out that there is a calendar in the hotel across from Spawn that has the date of 1981, even though this mission takes place in 1985. Didn't really have anywhere to put that, so I just wanted to add it to the end here. Now that I've spent enough time bitching around, it's time to give feedback. How would I make it better? Because it wouldn't be fair to Treyarch at all if I just stopped the video here. First, I think there isn't enough focus on one particular aspect of Cold War Berlin. Trying to incorporate too many aspects into the gameplay leads to none of them being really fleshed out. We can go to both East and West Berlin, there's the wall, there's Checkpoint Charlie, there's the ghost station. In my opinion, the map would still have been very good if it had taken place almost entirely in the subway system or taken more advantage of the death strip. Second, Google is your friend. If you're going to make a map based on a real place, make sure that you're actually representing that place, especially if it has such a significant historical context in the time period of your game. Next is how we escaped in the cutscene. Thematically, it would have been much more powerful if we had to escape through the death strip to the west, maybe similar to how it was done in Die Maschine, with stuff blowing up and having to dodge things. In conclusion, Mauer der Toten is a map that has very solid gameplay features, but is completely butchered in terms of historical accuracy. The wall is not accurate, the station has the wrong name, the inconvenience strip is almost useless, and there's too many lights in the buildings facing the west side. And again, if you don't care about these things, maybe this entire video seems like an overreaction. But I do care about these things, these details that are so important in this place, in this period of history. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this, or whether this even bothers you at all in the first place. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more COD Zombies content in the future. Have a good one, and I'll see you all next time.